Hey everybody, we are here with Amsa Burke. She is, well, you've been back for a while, but we've been praying for her trip to Africa with Mercy Ships, and I wanted to get a chance now that she's back to hear all about her trip and ask her some questions, and you guys can ask her questions too. But we want to hear all about everything she experienced in Africa and everything she saw. And we're happy to have you back. We're sorry your trip got cut short, but everything is getting all messed up lately. But we're thankful that you're back, and we're excited to hear everything.
Let's get
all the
to
things.
it. Let's do
So,
it. Wait. I want to take a quick. I'm so sorry to all of you that I said that I would be posting on my YouTube because I posted once.
Yeah, I felt really trolled. I followed your cool YouTube account and saw
one video, and it was. I felt so bad. I wanted to post more, but it's so hard to edit. Being a YouTuber is harder than it looks. It's not easy.
How about I give you this video and you can post it on your YouTube? And
this is a great idea.
It can wrap up.
That's amazing. Yeah. Okay. And I'll apologize.
All right. This will be up on Amsa's YouTube.
Yeah.
Okay. So first question I want to know about is, where did you go?
I went to Senegal. It's on this. It's the westernest point. I don't even know if that's a word in Africa. So it's the most western country you can get. It's on the west coast, obviously, and it's a pretty modern country, but also very impoverished. So.
And what led you to go there?
Okay, well, it's Mercy Ships, but
so yes,
I'm sorry. I was on Mercy Ships.
Ship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what did the ship do? How about that?
The ship goes around the coast of Africa, and it gives free healthcare to the residents in that country. So people with tumors, people with cataracts, people with what was the main, women's health and fistulas, also just bowed legs, burns, like severe burns. Just those are 5, and those are the main surgeries we do. And yeah, so that's what they do. They just take care of those people, and they get to have a better life, because most of them in their villages that have severe burns or tumors or cataracts, they're just pushed to the side, and they're called an outcast, and they don't get any help. And mostly they can't go to their hospitals around them, because in Africa it's very corrupt. And actually, I've heard in some Western countries, in some of the hospitals, they will actually ask you to get the surgical products needed for the surgery. So they'll be like, oh, you need a scalpel, you need to go buy that, and then I'm like, what? So you literally have to go shopping for your own surgery, and then they'll do the surgery on you, and then they'll make you pay for the surgery. And it's just very corrupt. So, and you can't really trust them either, because they're not very sanitary with their surgeries. So usually they go pretty bad. So it's really what Mercy Ships does is they also go to those hospitals, and we have a team that goes to the hospitals and teaches them better ways and more sanitary ways to take care of patients, and how to efficiently make money, but also be able to make it easier for patients to go and get help. So
very cool. Sounds like a great
really great cause. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you're a junior in high school.
Yes.
You have a whole life here in Washington. You were a cheerleader. You had friends here. What led you to spend a whole year on this ship, to leave everything and go?
So
huge sacrifice.
It is. I mean, I don't see it as a sacrifice, but it's just an opportunity. But my cousins have been on the ship for about 7 years. So my cousins, Zodi and Elsa, they're both from Ethiopia. And then my 2 other cousins from the Congo, Moise and Thierry. and their whole family have been on the ship for years and years and years. And they were my favorite cousins. I am very biased. They were my favorite cousins, and I got to see them like
Still? Are
every
they
3
still your
years.
favorites?
Yeah, they're still my
Okay.
favorites.
They didn't
I got
lose
to
that
no, they
status.
didn't. They gained even more.
Nice.
But every 3 years I got to see them when they came back from Mercy ships, because like they would spend a summer away from Mercy ships, and that made me very sad because I was really connected to them, even though like I only saw them one like for a week out of 3 years. So I always wanted to see them more often, and I always wanted to go on to Mercy ships, and we had thought of many times of like visiting for a week and stuff like that. But last year, and I even prayed for it. It's in my freshman journal.
Oh,
It's
wow.
in my freshman Bible journal, and it was like December, and I had prayed for I was going through like a really rough time or something, and I just prayed that I'd be able to have an experience on Mercy ships like in my junior or sophomore year, and it came true the next two and in 1 year. So God does answer prayers.
Cool.
Don't say He doesn't, because He does. So um I got a call, or my parents actually got a call in like December of last year, 2018 actually, and they right 2018. And it was my cousin Elsa, the younger one. She wanted to go to America for a study abroad for a year, and because Zodi, her older sister, my old cousin, had gone to France the past year for a study abroad, so she wanted to get that chance too, to go to a normal school and to be able to be in America for a while. So her parents said yes, and then they had a empty spot in the cabin, which is what they call rooms on the ship, and you can have up to 6 people in each cabin, so in a family cabin. So they wanted to fill the last spot, and so they asked me if I would like to come and stay in place of Elsa. So I jumped to yes right away. Like I was just ready to go. I was so excited because this was a dream that I've had for so long. And they actually thought I'd say no because they thought I wouldn't want to leave Linden, and they were wrong. So I was really excited to go, and actually it took a long time. We had to fill out a lot of papers. This is your next question, what it took to get there.
Sure, yeah.
And we had to fill out a lot of papers. I had to it was kind of like an application to go on to Mercy ships. I had to fill out what my reasons were, and why do I feel like God's calling me there, and just certain other things. I had to get permission from my school, and I had to get a lot of things until like in it was we are at basketball state. I was cheering at basketball state when I got the call that I was allowed to be on Mercy ships, or they had said yes. So it took 3 months for me to get a yes. So that was actually really stressful, because every week, like my uncle would say, "Oh, we'll get the answer this week on whether you're accepted," and then it'd be like, "Oh no, it's next week. Oh, maybe in 2 weeks." And so finally, it was really great to hear it. And from then, I just started kind of fundraising, working a lot to get some more money and fundraising, and um, yeah, and it just kind of all came together.
That's
And it was
awesome.
amazing. And I got a lot of help from a lot of my family and friends, and it was just really beautiful. And so in July, I left home, and I went to New York first, actually, and that's where I met up with my family, like Zodi and her 2 little brothers, and we dropped off Elsa in Pennsylvania, and then we took a plane to Spain and the Canary Islands, where the ship is docked. And so first we spent about 3 weeks in the Canary Islands. So 1 week in um, Las Canaria, which is like the main island, and then no, Las Palmas, which is the main island, and then Tenerife, which is another island off of Spain. We spent about 2 weeks there, and we did this major hike. One of the memories I have, we got what we our teacher, one of the teachers, said, "Hey, let's go on a hike as a class, and that'll be our field trip." And she's like, "Oh, it's just a nice walk." And no, it was a 6-hour hike.
Oh my goodness.
6 hours. And it was amazing though. It was really beautiful. We went through like the rainforest, and it was like desert, then it was really pretty flowers. It was like back to rain, and it was really pretty. Great hike. Took a lot out of you, but it was amazing. And that whole like July to like August 15th when we left for Senegal, that was like mostly we just did field trips as a school to get to know each other, because the Mercy Ships Academy, which is the school I went to, is really small, and it has people from a lot of places. So my junior and senior class, like the class that I had, was a mix of juniors and seniors. So it was me and my cousin Zodi. She's a senior, I'm a junior. And it was Caleb from Ghana and Micah from the Netherlands. So it's just people from all different nations coming together, and all these kids. So you have to really acclimate them to become used to each other, and also just know what we're all about, or like how we can work together. So we spent a lot of time just kind of building up relationships. And then from then we started school, and we were in Senegal, and we just started the first few weeks we set up stuff on the docks. After the ship is in the port, it stays there. So a lot of people think I've went to like 5 countries in this whole year. No, I went to 2 countries. I went to Spain, and I went to Senegal, and that's it. So we ported, and Ethiopia, but that was my personal trip. So we ported in Senegal in August like 16th or August 20th or something, and we didn't leave there until, we weren't supposed to leave there until like June 15th or something, but since Corona they left. So
yeah, tell me your just like first impression of the ship and everything that goes on there, like when you got to see and probably get your first tour. Like, was it bigger than you thought? Was it smaller than you thought? And all the things that happened on the ship. What was your first impression?
Well, it was hard to have any preconceptions of it, because I was just like, I couldn't even imagine it. It's like a ship where everyone lives on it, and there's a hospital. Just like, it's hard to imagine, but when you roll up, it looks so big when you get, like, when you first see it. It just looks huge. And there's this huge like staircase called the gangway that you have to climb up to get into the ship. And there's these 2 bodyguards called the Gurkhas, and they're all from Nepal. So, and they're like trained in every type of jujitsu, karate, anything. They're real, like, they do not mess with the Gurkhas.
That's awesome.
So they are the ones, and you have to sign in with your card, and you have to beep it every time you get on and off the ship. And if you don't have your card, the Gurkhas will not be happy. There have been many times where I did not have my card, and I begged them. I was like, please don't make me go back up and get my card. Because, so when I first got on the ship, it was kind of hectic, because a lot of people were getting there from like either PTOs, which is personal time off, or they were getting there for the first time. So it was just a lot of people with a lot of suitcases. The first time seeing what my home looked like, the cabin, as we called it, it was crazy, because I thought it'd be so much smaller, but it was actually a pretty big room. I mean, we had a kitchen in there, and we had like all the windows. We had like a bunch of windows that we could see outside onto the water. And so Zodi and I shared a room, and the 2 boys shared a room, and there's a room for my aunt and uncle. So yeah, and then there was a little bathroom. So, and we could only take 2-minute showers. That was one of the things, but only 2 minutes. Wow. Because you have to make sure you have enough water for everyone. So yeah.
Tell us your first impression of Senegal, I guess, because that's your main place, like mainland Africa. Getting to see Africa for the first time. It was
amazing.
What did you notice, and what did you see? What was it like?
Pulling up, it was just beautiful. It was like, I was so excited to be back in Africa, because it just kind of felt right. So
you're right, not for the first time.
It's not for the first time. No.
Do you have memories? How old were you when you were adopted?
5. Well, that's controversial. But
your age is controversial.
Yeah,
do you have memories from that at all?
Not many. I have mostly traumatic memories that I've had.
So seeing Africa
it was amazing. And we were everyone. So what they do when they pull up to a country for the first time is they all have these flags, and they have flags from every nation that's represented on the ship, that's so many. So everyone's holding flag. I was holding the Norwegian flag. I don't know why. I just was holding it. And so I was holding the Norwegian flag. Zodi was holding the Switzerland flag, and we were just all holding it, you know. And then we pull up to the dock, and everyone's super happy. And instantly people just get to work. I mean, we had to go back to school that day because it was a school day when we pulled up to Senegal. But yeah, we went back to school, and then by the end of the day, the gangway was ready and we could go down onto the dock. And it looked very concrete. That's my first view of it. It was just kind of a lot of dirt, a lot of concrete, and not very beautiful, very dry. That's what I saw from it. So, yeah. And the first night we were there, or the first day that we were there, they had this huge ceremony for us, a welcoming ceremony to Senegal. It took ages to get over. One thing to know when you go to Africa, there's such thing as Africa time, which means never rush anything because it will never they will say we'll leave, and they'll leave in about 3 hours. So the first time they say we're leaving, just expect them to be there for another 3 or 4 hours. And then maybe the second time they say we're leaving, maybe it's true, and then add another 30 minutes and they'll be actually gone. So Africa time is just you go with whatever. It's go with the flow. So don't try and rush things. I had to learn that. Being American, I was like, when is this going to be over? Is there a time agenda? No, it's not. People will speak for hours, and you just have to sit there and just act very interested. So yeah, that was cool seeing the opening ceremony. There's this red carpet for the Prime Minister of Senegal and everything, and so that's cool.
So the people of Senegal were happy.
Yeah, they were very happy that we were there.
So excited to see you. Yeah.
Everyone was mostly in like Muslim like attire because the country's like 95% Muslim, so so they're very religious, and you can just hear the Muslim prayers like every single morning. That's what I had to get used to waking up to.
Yeah.
Just Muslim prayers all the time. So
how much time did you spend off the ship in Senegal?
It depended on how busy I was, really. You can get off the ship whenever you want to. I mean, there's a curfew because they don't want you out in the middle of the night because that's dangerous. But the curfew was like 11. So you could go out and come back, and just as long as you're back by 11, then you can go out whenever you want. So I would run in the mornings at 6 a.m. And so we'd leave at 6 and we'd run until like 7, and then we'd get ready for school. So that's one time I'd be off the ship. So that's one time in the morning. And then if we could after school, Zodi and I might go out and walk around or something. But usually the school days, like the school week, was very busy because the academy is really harsh, and I had to learn a lot of new rules because American school is very easy. I learned it's not hard at all. So because what they have to do for the academy especially is they have to make sure that everyone the standard is very high, because they're sending kids back to kids who go back to their countries. Like you can't raise up a kid on the American terms standards and send them back to Switzerland because they will fail.
So you kind of have the
so they have to do the highest standard there. Yeah. And there's a lot of very high standard countries. So they work you very hard, and it's kind of just being like in a college class. They just kind of talk at you, and you have to take notes, and you have to make sure you get the assignments.
And you said basically because they had the junior and senior class together, you kind of did a senior year. I
did my senior year, so now to do it again. That's okay. Yeah.
Tell me what it was like for you as a person of color growing up in Linden, African American in Linden, and then being in Africa with people of your color,
not being the minority
like you,
anymore.
Not being a minority in Africa, like on your runs or in the cities. Like, what was it like?
It was really amazing. I got used to it because a lot of people on the ship actually. So what's really cool about the ship is every time they port in a country, they get these the volunteers. So they're called day crew, and they are there to help with. It's about like 200 people,
and they're locals.
And they're locals, and they come on the ship and they work for the day, and then they go back home, and they get paid, to clean, help out with translating, just do odd jobs that Mercy ships can't fill with just people from other countries, because they need people from specifically that country to do it. So they have the day crew, and if they see a really hardworking day crew, um, they can re- re- what is
Recommend.
recommend them to the managers, and if they get recommended, they can come on the ship as an actual crew member.
Mm.
So I got to meet a lot of people from a lot of different countries, because a lot of the crew members were actually people from past services, field services. So that was really cool. So that was one part of the ship, that the ship is very diverse, very diverse. Not many Americans, but a lot of different countries are there. So I got to meet a lot of people from a lot of different countries, and
Did you
but
ever have anyone in Senegal think you're from Senegal?
yes, oh my goodness, all the
So
time.
they, what
Yeah,
language do they speak in Senegal?
they speak Wolof. So
So people would speak to you in Wolof?
yeah,
Like,
they would, and I actually got a lot of marriage proposals. So yeah, you have to
just
be
like
very
Mexico
careful.
too.
Let's not remember Mexico. Oh my. But yeah, but the downside of having a lot of nations on the ship represented is that they don't celebrate American holidays.
Oh.
So we got on the ship for school. We got Christmas break for a week and a half, I think 2 weeks, and we got Easter break, and I didn't even get that because I was gone by then. But that's it for school, and then you get 1 day off every 6 weeks for school. That's it.
Wow.
And it just made going to school harder, because I was like, when are we gonna have a day off?
You
When
didn't
are we
have
gonna have a day off?
weekends?
Well, we had
You had
weekends,
weekends,
but it was just like
no extra breaks.
it's no extra breaks, so very harsh.
Yeah.
But,
So, what was the biggest challenge for you being on the ship? And did you have, actually, first question, did you have other responsibilities with the ministry of the ship? Were there extra roles or jobs on the ship that you had, or school was your main focus?
School was my main focus. I did a service project for 3 months, and I worked in the cafe. So there's a little Starbucks cafe on the ship, and it's not like actual Starbucks, but you can't like go there and ask for like a pinkety drinkety or something. But so but yeah, it's just like a Starbucks donated.
Oh.
It's yeah, and
It
so
is.
it's a coffee shop. Yeah, they actually had to take down the Starbucks sign though, because it was
official.
no, well, no, not that it's official. It was offensive. A lot of day crew got offended by it, because that's actually like a witch or something in Africa.
It's like a mermaid.
Like, yeah, it's
right?
yeah, it's the lady that's like this. I don't know how to do her pose, but she's actually like a witch or something in Africa. So they had to take it down and just put a star. So
stars and bucks.
Yeah, Starbucks.
That's what I saw in Israel, was a stars and bucks.
Really?
It wasn't funny. Starbucks. It was stars and bucks.
Stars and bucks. Anyway. Interesting.
So yeah, what was the biggest challenge as you look back on that time? Like most difficult thing for you?
School was the most difficult.
Yeah.
I had to adjust, and it was really hard, and it was hard to keep on going, because I had to adjust to online school, because I couldn't just do I didn't have enough credits just going to the Mercy Ship school. So I got English class as with an actual teacher, and I got my chemistry class with an actual teacher, but I did not get my math class with an actual teacher, or history. So it was really hard to learn without a teacher for me, and it still is really hard. So online school was really a struggle, and also just school in general. It just drained me out, and there's no other activities. Like, I was so used to being so busy with cheer and cross country and ASB and FFA and all these things that I was involved in, and I didn't have that. So I just really got bored of school, and it was the first time I've ever not wanted to go to school. I was like, no, I don't want to go. But yeah, and being in a class of 4 students, it's hard, because you know who's the one with like the worst grade, or the one with that doesn't get it, and so you have to it was tough. So that was challenging for me, and I think I compared myself a lot to the kids, but they were used to that style of school, so it was a lot easier for them, but I wasn't. And so I don't think it's fair for me to like compare myself, but I did a lot. So that was tough, and I had to I struggled with that the whole year. So yeah, I mean, other than like missing my parents and stuff like that, but I mean, I didn't miss them that much. It was just like sometimes I would, but that wasn't the biggest struggle for me. Missing people was not the biggest struggle, but definitely school is really tough.
Your parents came out to see you, right?
In
Or they met
Ethiopia,
you. So
no.
let's talk about Ethiopia.
Okay.
So you were born in Ethiopia.
Yes.
Your parents adopted you from there,
Mm-hmm.
and you have biological family that you had never since
Yeah.
you've been back
Mm-hmm.
seen or
Mm-hmm.
had much communication with. You
I
said
didn't have any.
you like in the last couple of years you got communication with your uncle.
Not my uncle. So my uncle from the ship, like
Oh,
who's my
you
yeah, that
your adopted
he
uncle worked
went.
out some communication.
Yes, he
That's what it
went
was.
to Ethiopia like about 4 years ago to go see my cousins, like Zodi and Elsa's mom, birth mom, and my birth dad. And so that was 4 years ago, and we got some answers then, and they got to know that we were alive and well, and that was really beautiful. And then he came back, and we didn't know when we'd go back, and we weren't mature enough then to go to Ethiopia. So we decided that this year, since I'm already on the ship, I'm already in Africa, and Elsa's in America, so it would make sense for us all to go to Ethiopia this year. So December of 2019, it was after Christmas. We boarded a plane in Senegal to go to Ethiopia. So we went to Ethiopia, and we met my parents met us there, and so did Elsa. Um, and we all, as a family, went to go visit. We spent a few days in Addis, which is the capital of Africa, the Star of Africa,
The
the
capital
capital
of
of Africa.
Ethiopia.
Ethiopia. What am I saying? Um, the capital of
It
Ethiopia.
has a star on it
It
on the
does
map.
have a star, so that's what I meant. But the capital of Ethiopia, and that was really fun. It was just great to be back. Instantly, when I smelled the air, I was like, oh, it's great to be back, because Ethiopia has the best smelling air in the world. It's so clean because it has so many trees, and it's very
Wow.
luscious. It just has, and you're really
So
high in
not what you
elevation.
think of when you think of Africa.
No, not dusty and gross and weird. It was just beautiful.
Wow.
And also, which is not what I think of Africa.
And you're
but,
saying you
yeah.
remember that
That
smell was
smell
from
is
when you were
instant.
5
Yeah,
and
it
below.
was because the spices, because people are burning incense constantly because they're doing coffee ceremonies all the time. All the time. So when you do a coffee ceremony, you burn like frankincense. I think that's what it is, or myrrh. I don't know, one of those two. You burn it, and you can smell it, and so it's a really beautiful smell, and it's just everywhere because people are doing coffee ceremonies everywhere.
So when they roasting coffee, they do a
smells
ceremony with it. Is that what they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
there's a
it's
lot
really
of
beautiful.
Ethiopian coffee goes
A
all over the
lot of
world.
Ethiopian coffee. Yeah, it's the best coffee ever. So, we I got to go to Zodi and Elsa's, my cousin's village. My family didn't go because they didn't want like that many people going. So it was like about a 6-hour trip in a van from Addis to their village, and very bumpy roads. Took a long time to get there. And this was a funny story. So we had to stop in the van. We started out very early in the morning, and like around 6, but when it was 9 o'clock, we stopped to get breakfast. And breakfast is just not a thing in Africa. Breakfast is, even in Senegal, breakfast is no, unless you go to a foreign restaurant. But it's just, you don't really have breakfast. They just have bread. So you'll see people just carrying on loaves of bread, baguettes, just eating them like for breakfast. So we are in Ethiopia and we need breakfast, and so we go to this little like shop, and they'd never seen foreigners before, so like, wow, a white man and a woman and kids that are dressed so differently, and they're just very surprised. But we were asking for breakfast, and I'm like, what? Breakfast? And so they are like, okay, well, and we had our translator Makoro, and he kind of translated, and he said that we needed some sort of food and stuff. So they bring out injera, which is our Ethiopian traditional bread.
I've had that.
So good, love it. But yeah, it's like very spongy and super thin, but like it's just airy. I don't know how to explain
it. Kind of like naan, but like lighter.
It's naan, but lighter. Yeah, they bring out this whole plate of injera with pasta on it, but on top of the pasta is eggs. So we had pasta, eggs, and injera for breakfast. Oh man, it was so bad. This is not it. So, I mean, we ate some of it because we had to, but I mean, it was because it was our breakfast, and then we had some coffee to drown it with, so that was good. But that was the most interesting breakfast I've had. Spaghetti, because that's the only kind of colonization, because Ethiopia is one of the only countries in Africa that's never been colonized. So the only influence they've ever gotten was Italian influence. So they do have pasta in some places, and they just thought, oh, they're foreigners, they must like pasta. So they just dumped it on top of the injera. It was so funny.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But we got to Zodi's village and Zodi Nelson's village, and it was like up a mountain, and we had to go over this bridge of sticks, literally a bridge of sticks, and it was so scary. Like, this might be my last breath right here. It was just made out of all sticks, and we could feel the sticks moving as we rolled over it. So, but we got up there, and it was really beautiful, and they were all dancing, and
so did it feel like what we'd think of as like a traditional African village? So like
definitely, yeah. It was just a lot of them. What I didn't realize is most like old, like teenagers kind of had like very old phones. I mean, they had phones, and in each of our villages, there was always a selfie guy. And so Zodi and Nelson are there. It's very like tearful. Everyone's super excited that they're back. And this guy that just comes, it's this selfie guy. And he doesn't say anything. He just walks up, takes a, he doesn't care if you're looking or anything. He just takes a selfie. So funny. But we got to hear stories from her village. And one story I have from her village is we were all in this circle in the hut, and they were eating food, and the main dish of that village, because each village has the dish that they have the most, was kitfo. And kitfo is an Ethiopian dish that's it's raw meat, literally just raw beef. So it's it sounds disgusting, but it's eaten a lot. And I've had it before, and it's good, and I don't like meat. It's fine. But they were serving it, and it's actually Zodi's favorite dish. And they were serving it, and it was just it just did not look good, and it was just kind of like congealed and like fatty and just thick, and it was just so raw. And one of the things that they do in Ethiopia to show that they love you is they feed you. Like they'll take a piece of injera, and then they'll take some food, and then they'll feed you. So Zodi's mom, we had to make sure that they didn't think that I was also part of the sibling group, because I wasn't. I was just kind of a family member there. Mm-hmm. But she wanted to show me that she loves me too. And so she takes this piece of injera, grabs this chunk of kitfo. I didn't know it was kitfo. She puts it in my mouth, and instantly I taste the kitfo, and I'm like, oh, it was so bad. It was so bad. And I had to act like I loved it, and it was just, it was a tough moment for me. Wow. And thank the Lord, my little cousin Moise had to go to the bathroom right then. And so I grabbed his hand so fast, and I dragged him out of the hut, and I was like, we're going. And we went to the bathroom, which was a little hole in the ground, and I had to throw it up. But it was pretty gross. Wow. But that was it was really beautiful though still.
So what family members of your cousins did you get to meet in that village?
Actually had all their family members there. Wow. So all their brothers were there. Zodi was the first sister, so she got to see all of her little cousins or little siblings, and they actually just had a new baby then. I was surprised they're still having kids, but they just had a new baby. They named it Dinkanesh, and so we called their little Dink. It's funny. And she's really cute. And then they had their mom and their dad, so wow. Everyone was there. And they didn't actually think they had a dad until they got to Ethiopia, because they had lied. The mom and dad had lied because it was easier for them to get adopted if they said the mom was alone. Mm-hmm. So they lied and said the dad was an uncle. But so they got to see that it was actually their dad. And they both looked like their mom and dad. So Elsa looked exactly like her birth father, and Zodi looked exactly like her birth mother. Wow. It was just really beautiful to see. So, yeah.
So now talk about going to your village.
So my village was another 3 hours south. So Addis Ababa, Zodi's village, my village down here. So another down trek. And what's interesting about Ethiopia is a really high elevation. So Addis Ababa is like at the top of the mountain here, and then the village was like down here. So you lost a lot of, like, it was actually kind of hard to breathe in Addis Ababa sometimes because we weren't used to it. Mm-hmm. My dad said he was like getting out of breath sometimes. So yeah, it's very high. We went to my village though, and it was like my village at the top of a mountain though. So we started at the bottom, which is like a little town called Mutala, and there we met my brother, my oldest brother named Delalen, and my sister Taro, and that's it. So, and my other sister and my aunt, my sister-in-law. So we all met them at the motel we were staying at, and then from there we walked to my brother's house, and there at my brother's house was my father, my my brother, my other brother Ermias, and a few other family members, I believe. But what's interesting is that a lot of people like saying that you're not family is very rude. So they'll call the neighbors your family. So you have to kind of make sure you know who's your family and who's not, because they'll say, "Oh, he's your brother," but really it's just the neighbor kid from the other side of the door. So or the other road. So
So what was that
it
like
was
for you to meet?
beautiful. It was great. It was kind of sad at first because
Sure.
I didn't actually remember anyone except for my father. So I didn't remember my brother. I didn't recognize anyone. I looked like them, so that's what I could see, but I did not. I didn't remember them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they could literally become complete strangers.
And
it was
they're
really
older
sad.
than you, so they remembered you.
I was the youngest of. Wait, can I take a drink of water?
Yeah.
I was the youngest of 13, so I was last one.
And you're the only one that was adopted out of Ethiopia in your immediate
I was the
family,
only one
right?
adopted out of the I think it is it 12? It's either 12 or 13, one of those two. So yeah, I was the only one. It was actually supposed to be me and my brother Amias, but it ended up just being me. So yeah. And it was amazing just seeing my father and everyone. And one thing that's really interesting is I figured out why I didn't like meat or like at all, because they didn't actually serve meat when we had our
so your
lunch.
village's food is
So
not
no,
raw
it's
beef.
not. It's definitely So it's definitely like.
What was their main dish?
Their main dish was shiro, which is like lentils and sauce. It's like this sauce with lentils, and it's really good. They had a lot of bread, but it's very good bread. So,
did any other memories pop up? You remembered your father?
I asked them, yeah, my father, and I asked them where my burn came from. I've had this burn mark on my arm for years and years. It's just this big burn, and I asked him what that was from, and it was actually from like coffee.
Wow.
I think I burned myself. I wrote down the story, but now I forgot it. I should have brought my notebook, but I got it from a fire, I believe. So yeah, that was really interesting. And they took me to where I was born. The hut had been taken down because they had built a different house, but I got to see the ground where I was born on, so that was really beautiful. And my mom had died, so I couldn't meet her, and so it was just my dad. And then
you know when your mom died? Biological mom died?
She died around like I think 1 year after I was born, something like that. And then
so that's you being the youngest and your family struggling to raise you is why you were adopted.
Also, I was severely malnourished, so they needed some way that I could get food. And then we actually took from my brother's house. We took a trek up to my village, and we actually started on the bus. So they got a bus for us, and all of my family and all of my birth family got to go on the bus and go up the mountain. And I was so surprised the bus got it up the mountain. Oh my goodness, it's just a huge mountain. And the bus didn't actually make it the whole way. It got stuck at one point, so all of us had to get off the bus and we walked the rest to my village, and it was just the most beautiful sight ever. You got to like the top of the hill, and you just saw this like expanse of just like greenery, all green, all different shades of green. It was just so beautiful, just at the top of the hill. And then we walked to my birth father's house, and we sat there, and we had this really sweet tea and more bread, and it was just amazing. So yeah.
Wow, that's what an incredible experience. I'm so amazing that you're able to find your biological family and have contact with
Yeah.
them and see them.
Yeah. It was really beautiful.
Do you think you'll ever go back?
Yeah, definitely. I'll definitely go back.
Sweet.
There was the second day we actually went. So we spent 2 days in each village. So 2 days in my cousin's village and 2 days in mine. And the second day in my village, we hiked up the hill because they couldn't get the bus this time. So we had to figure out a way to get to there. And the thing is, the rest of my family members had done this hike so many times. We had never done it. But it was just switchbacks up this huge rocky mountain. And these little kids were just passing all of us by. They're just running through it. And it was like, at one point, you had to be on your hands and knees because you're just straight up rock.
Wow.
Over a rock. And it's like, how do you get through this? But it was super hot, very sweaty. But yeah, it was a beautiful time for us all to be together as a family, though.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and I got to meet my nieces and nephews and stuff like that.
We have a couple questions in the chat.
Okay.
Did you ever help in the hospital?
Yes, I did. I got to be a mentee. What's that? Like I got to see over. Wait, what's the word?
An assistant?
No. Not an assistant. I got to be it starts with an A. I don't know. But I got to for my mentor project. I got to follow around a physical therapist. And so I got to work with a lot of the kids that had just gotten out of surgery. And that was really fun. I got to make up different really fun activities for them to do to make them practice getting their legs stronger and arms stronger. And that was really fun. I figured out I definitely wanted to do something with kids. So that's something that I was really thankful for the ship for, because I always wanted to be in the medical field, but I didn't know where I wanted to work. But I got to figure out like exactly what type of field I really wanted to go into. So that was great. Or like I got to take it like down.
Did you enjoy the physical therapy part? Is that
I
something
really
you're
did.
interested in?
Physical therapy is definitely something I'm interested in.
Cool.
Also, being a pediatrician is something I'm interested in. Interested in. But yeah, so that was really fun. I am actually not okay. My father's Norwegian. My father's side of the family is Norwegian and Czech Republic, Czechoslovakian when they were together.
Because of the flag, that's why.
Yeah, but I am Norwegian by adoption, so yes.
Oh, if anyone else
Hi,
can
Shannon.
write questions in. One question from Senna: did they speak any English? I'm assuming that's in your village. Did they speak any English?
My brother spoke English, and that is it.
Okay.
Yep. And I also
did you get contact? Are you going to be able to communicate?
Yeah, he has Facebook, so we got to talk to him through that.
Oh.
Also, I figured out that my age and when I was born, so that was great.
Because
that's the controversial part. So
are you older or younger than you thought?
So I was expecting them to be like, "Oh, you're 21," something like that.
Go get a new ID.
Yeah. No. So my sister Taro and my brother Ermias we were sitting on the bus and we were going up to my village, and I was they knew some English. They had gone to school, like they knew very little though. So I was trying to explain to them. I was like, age. And they were like, age. And I was like, okay. And I said, me, 17. How old are you? And she was like, huh? I was like, 17. I'm 17. How old are you? And I was like, I'm pretty sure that's pretty basic English. Tried to figure out how to say it. And so I turned around to my brother Delila and I'm like, why is she saying no? And why is she not understanding that I'm 17? And I was just asking how old she was. And he was like, you're not 17. And they told me that I was actually 14, turning 15, or 15, turning, yeah.
You think what?
Yeah, so they said that.
Wait, but they thought your parents thought you were 5 when they adopted you.
Well, the orphanage lies. So many lies from the orphanage.
But they couldn't have been 3 years off with a 5-year-old, could they? You were also malnourished.
Well, I was very malnourished, so I don't know.
You'd think you'd be older than they thought, not younger.
That's what I thought. But they said that it makes sense because Ethiopia is back 8 years. So right now in Ethiopia it's 2012. And they also have an extra month in their year. So
the math could be.
The math is just not. I'm so confused. I don't know how old I am, but my brother said that I was. They it makes sense because my mom died when I was 1, so it makes sense that they had like a whole year with me, and they figured out that in that span of time that they couldn't take care of me. So when I was 2, turning 3, they gave me to the adoption center. That would make sense because I was only at the adoption center for about 8 months until I was adopted, and I was almost turning 4. And so I guess maybe I was 3, and so
But then they
I
have
don't
the
know.
extra month, so
Yeah.
your
So
lifespan, that's a year. So maybe you're
maybe
16, not
I don't
17.
know, but they said that I was born in 1998 and after the rainy season. So they got October right. Um, so 1998 Ethiopia time, which is 2006 um, American time, plus 2 years, 2.5 years, which is middle of 2008, which is when my parents adopted me, or end of 2008. So it makes sense. Like
So
it
you're a
can make
90s
sense.
kid in Ethiopia.
In Ethiopia, I am a 90s.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But yeah, so
Wow,
I don't
that's complicated.
very
So you're not
complicated.
getting a new ID, you're just going to go
No,
with
I could be 15, I could be 16, I could be 17. Who knows? One of those three. One
That's
of those
hilarious.
3. But yeah,
I
nowhere to hide.
don't know what
Funny.
that means.
I don't know either.
Yeah, what are some of the highlights? Maybe like some of my wrap up questions, like what are some things you learned, like maybe how your faith is impacted and what God taught you through all of this?
So being on the ship is an amazing experience because you really get to have this concentrated long period of time. It's like the camp high, but the camp high lasts for months and you get to build on the camp high. So you know what I mean by the camp high, like
Yeah.
when you come back from Camp Shiloh, like woohoo. And so being on the ship, I got to really invest in my relationship with God, and I got to really dig deep into what it means, like without all the distractions. And it's not just without all the distractions for a week. It was all the distractions for 8 months. And so it was just really beautiful. And I feel like I had like a spiritual reawakening, you know? I got to really have a relationship with God to the point where I was just like very just like on fire. Like it was just such a beautiful, beautiful thing to just be so connected.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
And so
so
the disconnection from your life here
it was really great.
really
Yeah. So I
created a
definitely, and
focused
just
time.
having the community there because they're always there to help
Mm.
you. So I got to talk to so many people about their relationship with God, but also like I got to just like learn off of them, and I got to um be able to hear different preachers from different, like there was a preacher from Switzerland, there's a preacher from also Texas, but there's also a preacher from Netherlands, like and Congo. So I got to hear different preachers from different parts of the world and give their take on what it means to be a Christian for them, and that was really beautiful. So it's not just hearing one person preach every day or every week. It was just hearing different people's stories and what
And
they
then
gospel
all the
meant.
world views too. You guys,
Yeah.
all the people from all over the world. That's
Yeah.
really neat
It
too.
was really great. And the worship is amazing. I love the worship. So we had different kinds of worship all the time. We had like the African traditional worship with all the drums, but we also had the like not the Americanized, but like the regular church worship. So it was great. It was a great experience. My spiritual experience. I wish I could go back every day just to be with the Mercy Ships Church, because it is truly beautiful.
That's neat. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Yeah, coming home obviously was more abrupt and sooner than you thought because of Corona.
Mm-hmm.
And so describe, you said that coming home was quick and you didn't get to say all your goodbyes, and then you came home to a shutdown Linden. And
yeah, so actually coming home, we didn't think the coronavirus was going to hit us, and it didn't. No one on the ship got the coronavirus, but in Senegal people started getting the coronavirus, so the ship had to leave because they couldn't bring on a patient from that had the coronavirus onto the ship, because the ship is so concentrated that it would just spread and everyone would have it. So instantly when the ship figured out that they had more than 4 cases of the coronavirus in Senegal, then we had to leave. So we had to say no to a lot of surgeries that were going to happen, and kids who have been waiting for a long time, waiting for surgeries, didn't get them, and it's very sad. It was a really sad time. And so we didn't think that, like, my family on the ship didn't think that we had to leave, but they started take taking away, or like removing, the people that were at risk on the ship. So one of the at risks for coronavirus is people with diabetes, and my uncle had diabetes, so we had to leave the ship. And we found out on a Friday night at 6 o'clock, and it was actually, it's a funny story, but it's sad also. But we were talking about leaving, and we had talked about it the day before, just because they had told us. They said if any Americans want to leave, there will be a flight on Saturday night that is going out. That's a whole, like, the America sending a Delta plane to pick up the Americans. So we were thinking about leaving, but we decided to stay. We thought that was what was right. And so then, because we thought that's safer than being in America, being on a ship that's has a hospital on it at least. But we wait, so the next day, which was Friday, after we'd made the decision to stay on the ship, my little cousin Thierry, who's just very like a trickster kind of person, comes in the cabin at 6 o'clock at night, and he goes, so we're leaving, by the way. I was like, huh? And it's like, funny joke. And I walk out of the cabin to go do some service project or something. And um and he's like, no, I'm not kidding. I'm like, yeah, funny joke, Terry. It's okay. You didn't get me this time. And I keep on walking, and I get to the cafe, which is where I was working, and the girl that worked in the cafe with me was like, I think you have a very busy night tonight. You don't have to work in the cafe tonight. It's like, what do you mean? And I was like, oh, well, Thierry did tell me a funny joke that we were leaving, but it's not true. And she's like, I think you should check with your aunt. And so I went and talked to my family, and they told me that we were leaving there, and they were trying to find me, and they said they'd sent Thierry up to tell me, so I had to say sorry. I felt so bad. But that's what happens. It's like the boy who cries wolf. I was like, I'm not gonna believe you. So yeah, so then we had that night, so 6 o'clock to 10:30 in the morning, we had to pack up and leave. So pack up all of our stuff and leave, and we left that next morning at 10:30. I stayed up all night that night. It's crazy. Yep. And I also had planned a surprise birthday party for my friends on the ship for the Saturday night. And so I actually had it at 8 a.m. in the morning instead, and we had cake for breakfast, and I made cake at 4 a.m. in the morning. It was a fun experience.
So yeah, that's hard to have an abrupt surprise goodbye, not getting to process it. You came back and you were in quarantine for 2 weeks.
Yep. That was okay, I guess. I couldn't touch anything. I couldn't touch anyone. Just kind of quarantined, but it's okay. It was actually a good time because I got to have the alone time to kind of process through. So yeah.
And then so this is good from Kat. How can we contribute and help? And if someone wanted to go to the Mercy ship, what advice would you give them?
Okay, so that's a good question. How can you contribute and help? For Mercy ships, there is donation links on their page, and it's just a great place. If you're trying to figure out a place to donate to, definitely donate to Mercy ships because their work is amazing. And it's not like the classic, I think a lot of people, I went down a lot, but it's okay. A classic missionaries, they leave the ship, they leave the place where they're going, and then they don't come back ever. But what Mercy Ships does is they train people, so then in the country, and so they know what to do in the future. And then they also have people that come back to the country to check up on them, to make sure they're doing okay, and to ask what else we can do to help them. So it's a very good cause. They're very foolproof, and they can really help countries.
I love hearing how they give locals jobs too. Yeah. And I know a lot of those jobs are fulfilled by locals, so they're not just all foreigners helping out, but then they're supporting the local economy by employing people too. Yeah, and bringing in experts, doctors and stuff.
It's really amazing. Yeah. And then and if someone wanted to go the Mercy ships, what advice? Okay. What advice? I would definitely say that Um, hmm. I'm trying to think of things that I would like to know. Um, just know that it can also, okay, having a community constantly is great, but it's funny because you can feel really alone in a place that you literally cannot be alone. I would like run around the ship all the time trying to find a place where there was no one that was going to be there. It's hard to find a place on the ship where you can be alone, so that's definitely one thing. It can get really overwhelming having those constant people and having to constantly put on a smile on your face when you pass someone. And but just know that they do have counselors on the ship that you can go to. And but then another thing is you can feel really alone on the ship, so just make sure that you have a way to connect to other people and just make really good friends on the ship, I would say. um, and other advice, make sure you have a sponsor or just have a lot of money saved because it is really expensive. And yeah.
Do you know if they have opportunities for like an 18-year-old graduating? Sorry, that chair sinks.
It's okay.
Maybe someone after high school, could they go alone and
Yeah, when you're
be
18 you can go
volunteer on the
alone.
ship for a
Mm-hmm.
year or something like that?
Yep.
That would be
My
sweet.
actual one of my really good friends on the ship, Josh, he skipped his senior year to be a receptionist on the ship. So that's he never knew how to be a receptionist. That's another thing about being on the ship. You can apply for jobs that you've never done before.
And
And you
train you.
just, yeah, and then they'll train you. So
Cool.
it's not like you can't have like a doctor job, but you can
I
definitely have
applied
jobs.
for the
Yeah.
head surgeon job
Head
and got it.
surgeon. I've never done anything. I've never even put a band-aid on someone before. Yeah. That'd be funny. But yeah, so my friend Josh, he finished his school and he got into a college in his junior year. So he decided to not stick around for a senior year and do nothing and go to the ship. So he turned 18, and actually he didn't even turn 18 on the ship, or no, in America he turned 18 on the ship.
Mm-hmm.
So he left when he was still 17 and he came on the ship and he learned how to be a receptionist, and it's pretty amazing. So yeah, when you're 18 you can be on the ship alone. And when you're alone on the ship as a teenager or just any age, actually, you get put in these cabins filled with people. So some cabins have like 10 people in them, which are individual people, and you're separated by like a curtain, and you have a bunk bed. But yeah, you just get put in a cabin with random people, and it's great because you get to meet people from like one cabin I remember seeing had 6 different countries in it, people from 6 different countries. So it's pretty great. So
that sounds
yeah,
really neat.
it's really neat.
To see some different parts of the world and to meet people from all over the world.
Yeah.
And help people.
Yeah.
Cool.
It is. It's really cool. What were some of the highlights? I'll name a few of the highlights here. I was able to do a half marathon. That was really fun. In Senegal, and it was not fun. It was blistering heat. It took a lot out of me, but it was fun to do. I'm glad I got to do that. Being an apprentice for the physical therapy, that's what I was looking for, kind of.
Apprentice.
Yeah. So physical therapy and also nursing, being a nurse on the ship. Like I got to follow a nurse, and that was really amazing. And I got to make a cast actually for one of the patients. That was really awesome. And it's also just like visiting the patients, because you can do that. You can go down to the wards and visit all the patients that are coming out of surgery, like people that just come out of tumor surgery. And it's just great. Even though you don't speak their language, you can paint their nails, you can hang out with them. It's great. So, and you can play games with them, and they just love to see different people, and it's great to make friends.
Yeah, it was that way in Mexico too. Like we
Yeah.
couldn't speak the language, but when
With
you were
them.
down there with us, it was like
Yeah.
you just hang out, you figure out things to do together, and you build a relationship without being able to talk to each other.
Yeah, and it's just so beautiful. And then also I made a lot of friends from, like, I made this one friend from England, and his name was Bill, and he was like 60 years old, I think, and he's the greatest person I've ever met. Loved him. But yeah, and we're still in contact today. So just meeting friends from so many different places and still being in contact with them is just amazing. Another highlight, just the fun things we did on the ship. Probably there was a talent show. There was There was open mic nights. They just had a lot of fun things. Especially Christmas time was really fun on the ship. They had a way of making you feel like you were still it's just new experiences, but felt like home. So it was great. Yeah.
What do you miss from Kat and Franny?
What do I miss from the ship? I miss my friends a lot. I also just miss the community and the little kids. I used to play with the little kids a lot on the ship. Not just little kids from like outside and like in Senegalese kids, but also just the little kids from the families on board. I miss those kids. I had a lot of fun with them. I used to play chess with this first grader all the time on the ship after school, and his name was James, and he's from England, and I loved him. Great little kid. So I definitely miss that. I miss I just miss Africa in general, and going to the islands. There were some islands off of Senegal that we got to visit, and they're really fun. So yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing all that about your trip.
Yeah.
I did want to follow up a little bit on everything that's going on right now with protests, and you got to go to a protest just yesterday?
Yes.
And
wait, was it yesterday?
With Kat?
Yeah, thank you.
You wrote up an Instagram post, some about your experience being a person of color, growing up in Linden. This is incredibly white, and I feel like I got a little picture into your life too, of like even people's expectations on you. Of actually people, you said that people kind of make comments that you're not very black, and they think you should be more black or something, but and just the different expectations on you and growing up here. And do you want to share about like some of what's going on right now? So much is going on.
It's crazy.
And some of it's good, some of it's very destructive, but there's also, I think there's a lot of attention there, and hopefully some good things. Racial prejudice stuff is going to change. What are your thoughts on all that?
I think that, okay, my first thought when I heard about what all happened and George Floyd, I was very hurt. But at the same time, it's a very, like, what a time to be alive that we can speak out against this. And I'm using this time to be able to make, like, it's been, okay, there was this song that I listened to by this rapper who talked about police brutality and racism in 1992, saying we need to make a change. That was 1992. And it's been going on for so much longer than that. But it's just sad that after all these years, like, there's some things that have changed, but there's a lot of things that are very important that haven't changed. So I think that this is a very good time for kids to be able to use their voices, but also just us to really realize, and so coronavirus made us realize like our connections and how family is very important, and just being connected with each other is really important. But now is the time to realize that, like, also people of color are not just matter, but are very needed in the community. And that's what, like, our differences are what make us so beautiful. So so I think that without this time, I'm very thankful for this, even though it's a horrible thing that happened. I've been able to find my voice, and I'm if you guys know the Enneagram types, I'm a peacemaker. I'm number 9, and I am a person that does not like causing conflict, and I don't like making any kind of shift in the algorithm or anything. And so whenever at school, if someone was being like really prejudiced against me or just mean to me about my color, or said something rude, I wouldn't say anything, and I'd laugh along with them because I thought that's what you should do. And I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to think people would think I'm weird, or I'm too sensitive. So I spent a lot of time just hiding things that really hurt me. So I think that this is very important also, and at the protest the other day, a lot of girls and just boys got to speak, or mostly girls, but they got to speak about their experiences at school and how racism is so real, even in just like small communities. and how we need to make a change at not just like our whole country and our systems that need to make a change, but also our like little small community like schools definitely need to make a change. And so yeah, I'm really excited to see what comes out of this, and hoping that this doesn't is not just a um you know, like a little tiny time of people standing up. I hope that this will last, and that people won't forget it after a few weeks, you know. So
One thing you said you realized yesterday was
mhm.
that, at, talking about wanting to have more diversity in
Yeah.
schools and teachers and stuff, and you
Mhm.
realized you had never had a black teacher in your
No,
life.
I've
So
never had a black
you probably
teacher.
haven't had an authority with
Mhm.
someone the same skin color as
Yeah.
you in your life.
Mhm.
That's kind of sad.
Yeah.
Maybe it reflects our community too, but that what are some things that you can see that could change, even like in Linden? Like, what are things we
I wrote
can
some notes
do
down.
to help and to be different?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think that some of the things they said at the protest. This was like a very peaceful protest, and it was also raining and hailing, and everyone was shivering, but it was great.
And you said you
Um,
got to speak at it too.
I did get to speak at the end, so it was really great. I'm glad I got to share my story and resonate with everyone else too. So, yeah. So when they said that we want more Black teachers in our school, it like hit me like a brick. Someone literally could have slapped me. That's how shocked I was because I've never had a black teacher or a black staff member, not even a black janitor. I'm not even like no one at our school. So that was just very surprising. And just like my whole school experience. I mean, I've always been one of the few black people, and I've even in elementary school I was the only black person in my grade. So it definitely, I didn't really realize it at the time, but it did take a toll on me once I was in 8th grade and growing up and seeing the difference. And um, so yeah, and I think another thing needs to change. Some other things that could change is also like ethnic studies at our school should be like not man. I mean, maybe they should be mandatory, but also I think that a lot of kids need to learn more about culture and and I think they need to speak more about what it means to respect someone's culture, because it's not just Black culture that's being hurt by racism. Also, like the Muslim community, a lot of kids make jokes about that they're terrorists and we shouldn't trust them and we should not walk on the same side or something because they might be terrorists. Just like very mean. Also like Asians, I like a lot of people like it just people like racism happens everywhere and to each different culture. So I think ethnic studies is very real, and I think that should be definitely a thing that people take in school. So just to be make people aware of that culture's like their um their holidays and what makes what's very special to them, and so people know what not to, you know, make fun of. So
Mm-hmm.
um and then um someone said counselors for mental health support. I mean, and also something about that counselors, someone said that the counselors in their school are also very occupied with making sure kids like they're at the same time they're being put to the task of making sure everyone is in the right class and making sure everyone has good enough grades to be in that athletic department or something like that. And so counselors are very caught up with all these other things that have to do with out of other activities, and they can't focus on just asking kids how are they and how can I help you, and focus on their mental health. So I think that making sure kids have or that counselors have help, and maybe just have like an assistant counselor that does the rest of that stuff, like getting kids in class and stuff, but then having the main counselor be able to speak to the kids and making sure that they're really there for them, because
Mm-hmm.
I felt that my counselor didn't care about really anything else. So
Mm-hmm.
um and then have maybe like a like other than I guess this fits in the ethnic study, but a Black history class, because I don't think we touch up on Black history enough. Even like we only talk about slavery a little bit, um and when we did, people would like be like, "Oh, I'm so used your ancestors were slaves." Like sometimes kids would say that. It's like, okay.
Well, they weren't.
Right. No, they weren't actually. I'm from Ethiopia, so but yeah, I think Black history class would be very interesting because then people would really get to see the history of the oppression. So I think that would be very, very much needed.
I totally agree. Like, I grew up with my parents work with missions organizations, so people from all over the world would be in our home.
Yeah.
And I grew up with seeing all these diverse, different cultures. But I think a lot of my peers were raised to be more like colorblind, which was like an attempt. It almost like what I'm reading, and it's coming out like just like ignoring color is almost like you're putting up blinders and you're ignoring issues.
Yeah.
Right. And that's not necessarily the answer to defeat racism, but I think a better answer is to appreciate diversity and appreciate our differences and study and learn from each other more than like just like ignore it and be like, oh, you have dark skin, I didn't even notice, like kind of like making that up.
I don't see color.
Right. Is that I forget, there's a comedian that makes that joke, like, it's like, I didn't even know you were Black. Like, I'm colorblind. But rather like to appreciate and learn from diversity, which is harder. Like what you said too. Like your culture is basically Linden because you grew up here from a 5 years old. Yeah. So the diversity of your culture isn't as diverse. So that's maybe where some people said like, you're not Black enough, or you don't act like in the way they think you should act. But that's what we learned from too. Like, what was your growing up experience like? Like, where did you come from? What does your family do? Like, and everybody's different. And being students of each other's culture and students of learning from each other's how we grew up. And that's true for everyone. I mean, it's not just skin color, it's cultures and different things too. And learning to appreciate it rather than just ignoring it is one thing that is coming out for me. But it's all very interesting, and
get educated.
I think there are things that can change, and like you said, it's an ongoing process. Someone posted like the span, I'm not gonna be able to remember the years, but we basically had 200 years at least of slavery in America, and then it wasn't until the 60s where I can't remember the right term, but when things changed and segregation went away, that's when segregation went away. So you look at the history of racism in America, we have a very long history of separation and slavery, like 240 years or something, or more than that, plus, 260 years. And we're only out of either segregation for like 60 years now. 60 years or so. And, it's just, this is a long process. And it's not an issue that just went away. Like most people just ignored it and tried to be colorblind. And probably those issues are deeper seated, and maybe that's why they come out in hot, heated moments like police encounters and stuff like that. Like that stuff that we repress and push away. And it's better to not.
And I think it's very important that, I think some parents don't really touch up on racism, and I think that it should be it should be a thing that you should talk to your kids about. Maybe like I'd say beginning of middle school, because I was on the bus with this kid in 6th grade, and who was in 6th grade. I was not in 6th grade, but this kid that was in 6th grade was just throwing around the slur, and I was like, I don't think you should say that. And he asked me why not. So
and I think know?
He did it. I think he did know. He said, what are you gonna do about it? And I was like, I didn't even know what to say at that moment. So I think being taught about what that means and how that word is not one to throw around, and how that's not in what the history of that word is, how much pain that word has in it. So it's not something cool to say. I think that I think that can be taught because
cool.
That's what people think.
I like your ideas, and I appreciate your perspective, and loved hearing about your trip. And I just think it's so incredible that you got to meet your biological family, and I'm excited if you ever get to go back, and the contact you'll have with your brother and stuff like that. That's just incredible, right?
I'm excited.
praise the Lord for your adopted family and for them raising you and taking care of you. And how awesome is it that you have a biological family and got to see some of your origin story? And
it's beautiful.
Oh, so awesome. Thanks for sharing it all with us.
Yeah.
And thank you guys for being here.
Thank you for listening, and thank you for all the questions. Wait, did I not answer one?
I think you got